What's going on, everybody? Week 15. We got Steelers heading to Philly to take on the Eagles, a place where they haven't won in 59 years. That is a stat that I saw earlier this week on social media. No matter how many times I've read it, it's still something that just blows my mind just because, how good the Steelers have been throughout my lifetime. And I know they only play there, like once like every 8 years or something like that. It's just crazy to me that kind of interstate rivalry, if you will, has been so lopsided in Philly. But as you could probably tell, I'm a little bit under the weather. Okay, more than a little bit. I'm battling pneumonia right now, which really sucks. But please just bear with me. We're going to battle through it here, talk some ball, get this preview underway. So just before we get rolling, if you guys could, just make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. I would sincerely appreciate it. Also, don't forget to drop me your game/score predictions in the comments. I always enjoy reading those. Steelers are 5.5-point underdogs in this one. But the 2 seed is on the line in the AFC playoff race. But I'm just curious on how you guys feel about this game, how confident you all are, and anything interesting that you want to drop down below on the game itself. Philly's coming into this one on a 9-game win streak. So they're rolling, but they did have some drama pop up after narrowly escaping that game against the Panthers last week. A.J. Brown not really happy with the passing game performance. I think those comments kind of got misconstrued a little bit, but the media kind of ran with it. It is what it is. Became a huge talking point, but unfortunately, we do got some significant injuries to kind of talk about with this one from the Steelers' perspective. No George Pickens, no Deshaun Elliott, no Larry Ogunjobi. So they're going to be down 3 starters. To start off with Pickens, I wasn't sure that if he was going to play last week or not after they declared him out. Kind of reached out. I got word that this was going to end up being like a multi-week thing. I don't know what that means. It sounds like he's more likely to be back for probably the Chiefs game than the Ravens game this coming up weekend, but we'll see. I mean, everybody's body reacts different. Grade 2 hamstring, typically sometimes like a 3 to 4 week injury. They obviously desperately need him, but I mean, this is, out of his control. It's the first time he's really been injured in the pros. So just really unfortunate overall. Deshaun Elliott having a fantastic season. I thought he had some really strong moments against the Browns last week as well. I know, he allowed that touchdown late to Njoku, but I thought he played a really good game otherwise. And really sucks to have to lose him, especially in a week like this. And we'll kind of talk about some of the reasons why and some of the ways that the Steelers may have to kind of shift some of the things that they want to do schematically on the defensive end. But he's having an incredible season. Hopefully he's back soon. Larry Ogunjobi had a pretty quiet season overall, but obviously you lose one of your starters, you're going to start to tap into some of that depth. The good news is Montravius Adams has been a full participant in practice the last 2 weeks. I would anticipate that he's probably going to get activated at some point today. I'm recording this early Saturday morning, so we'll see what they do with him. That could, add another rotational piece. Otherwise, you're going to see more like Isaiah Loudermilk, probably some Dean Lowry, guys like that. The Eagles are relatively healthy. They did just place Dallas Goedert, their really good tight end, on injured reserve, I believe. He's been their kind of de facto number 3 option in the passing game, so that's notable. But, Reed Blankenship's back. They're starting safety. They don't even have anyone else on the injury report, I think, except for Covey, who's like a depth guy / kick punt return or whatever. But that's kind of just like where we're at. But I'd kind of want to start just by talking about the real battle this week. Steelers defense, Eagles offense. This is a truly great on great matchup, one that I'm really excited about, especially in the trenches. Like if you're a fan of like just watching the trenches, whether it's like on the broadcast, back on film, this is going to be an absolute treat to watch, y'all. I'm so jacked up for this. But just kind of to get into Philly, some of my like scouting notes on them. So it's still a really like shotgun based spread and shred type of team. They use a lot of RPOs. It's a lot of inside zone, split zone variations. They have implemented some more like gap power changeups that they'll use, maybe a little bit more so than in recent seasons. They usually like to pull guys away from the side of the 3 technique. So if you're playing like a standard like over front, depending on the offensive formation, they will usually pull away from your 3 technique and towards like your 1 tech or your like shaded nose. That's typically what they like to do. I was pretty impressed with Cam Jurgens. He's a guy that just took over Jason Kelsey's spot at the pivot. Kelsey's everywhere now. He's all over like the media realm, but Jurgens he's a pretty good player, especially in the run game. Like nobody moves really like Kelsey does, but he moves really well on the move. So Landon Dickerson, their left guard, he's a straight bully, man. Like you talk about an offensive line that generates displacement in the run game. You look at the yards before contact numbers for Saquon, and that really tells the story. Like this group gets a lot of push up front. Dickerson against Hayward one-on-one is like an elite on elite type matchup based on how those two guys have played this season. And, I don't think there's a better interior defensive lineman right now in football with how the season has gone than Cam Hayward. I truly believe that he should be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. We can kind of talk about that at a later date, but that matchup alone is going to be really good. I'm excited about that. They leave their tackles on the island more than I think any other team that I've really seen so far this season on film. Jordan Mailata, freak athlete, kind of a converted, I think rugby player or whatever. He's had a weird kind of crazy ascension. He's a really good player. Their right tackle, Lane Johnson, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't even know if he's allowed a sack this season. I know he was on that crazy streak without allowing one. They're going to leave him plenty one-on-one with TJ Watt. TJ's going to have to win. The edge rushers, the Steelers front obviously is the strength of their team overall, but it's also Philly's strength. So this is what I'm saying, great on great, good on good. This is real strength on strength type of matchup, and we'll see who's the better group when it comes out. But the Steelers pass rush, they're going to have to really hold up against the run. This one, it doesn't get better than this. I think that this matchup is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Their quarterback, Jalen Hurts, I think Jalen's been fine this year. He's not playing as well recently. The pass game's kind of stalled out. I would say the best way I could categorize it is it's been uninspiring despite good protection. They've got 2-star receivers, obviously. Hurts, he loves to push the ball outside the numbers. He throws a great deep ball. He's really accurate on deep curls, hitches, comeback, sails. If you look at Hurts' passing chart, it looks a lot like Russ's. They don't throw in between the numbers very much, but they like to push the ball down the field a decent amount. I just don't think he's playing at a high level right now, to be honest with you. And I think that this is kind of the Steelers' path to keeping this game competitive or pulling off the upset as underdogs in this one. And he just doesn't look to be playing with a ton of confidence. He's not testing tight window throws, not playing with any type of anticipation, just looks slow to process. He's been much more effective this season as a scrambler. I think he looks maybe even a little bit more spry than he has in recent seasons. Even more so than he is as a designed rusher in some of their zone read packages. But Pittsburgh has a linebacker that runs a 4-4, Patrick Queen. Queen's been excellent this season. The Steelers defense has been excellent in totality in terms of limiting the effectiveness of those scramblers. You think it's some of the things that they did to kind of contain Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, those guys, they've been the best in the league in that. So I think they'll have a pretty decent handle on Jalen with that. But you look at Jalen's numbers, I think his time to throw recently has been in the 3.2 range. He's holding the ball a long time. That's what I was talking about, being a little bit slow to process, slow to trigger. He's only averaging 5.1 yards per attempt when pressured. Now, this Philly offensive line, it's outstanding. There's no doubt. But this is the Steelers' strength of their team. Their pass rush is going to have to win their one-on-one matchups, man. Philly's going to try to get guys out. In the pass route, they're going to try to get 4 or 5 guys out. They're going to have to win one-on-ones. And I'm really excited to see if they can do that, because I think if they can get pressure on Jalen, force him to a couple bad decisions, that could be rather advantageous for them. Just the last, I went back and watched the last couple games of his dropbacks, and it's just you watch it and it's this is it. How is this team so loaded offensively from a talent perspective? And this is the type of production you're getting from a quarterback that you're paying a lot, man. Over the last 4 weeks, he's had 0 big time throws. So big time throws are how PFF charts, excellent throws into tight windows or, your highlight worthy plays. 0 4 weeks. So it's just kind of how their pass game's gone. But you look outside on the perimeter, they got a lot of weapons, man. AJ Brown, absolute bully. He's great in all 4 phases of how you would evaluate wide receiver play. True tier 1 guy. He great off the ball. You can't really press him. He runs good routes. He's excellent at the catch point. After the catch, he's really dynamic, super strong, can run through tackles. He's a true yak threat. Like I said, he's a tier 1 wideout. He's up there with the Justin Jeffersons, the Jamar Chases, those type of guys. Devontae Smith, don't let the size fool you. He's 165 pounds soaking wet. I swear to God. But he's outstanding at the catch point, man. It's honestly pretty remarkable how good he is and how all of his skills at Alabama have kind of translated over to the league, despite him being really an outlier from a size perspective. He's really good on 2-way option routes out of the slot. They're playing him on the slot a lot more this season, so that's something that you're going to have to kind of monitor with him as well. And One of the things I think obviously Joey Porter Jr. is going to play a huge part in this game. Came across a stat that I really liked from Next Gen Stats with Joey when I was doing my prep for the video. Joey's seen 36 targets in man coverage this season without allowing a touchdown. That's actually the most targets of any player or any corner in the NFL this season without allowing a score. So, these are the moments that I think Joey personally, like when I watch him on film, he seems to play better when he has like really top tier matchups. And when you allow him to go one-on-one and play man coverage. So I'm excited to see if that's the route they go schematically. I'm excited to see if he can rise to the challenge because, like I said, they're going to need a huge game from him. But this offense really runs through Saquon. They're the best run game in the league this year. You just look at all the figures. They're number one in EPA per play. They're fourth in success rate. Barkley's on pace to break Eric Dickerson's rushing record that has stood for quite a while. Granted, the 17-game season now is in fact all that stuff. But I just think when you combine like his feel, his vision behind this offensive line and the way that they can move people off the ball, it's pretty scary stuff. He can sequence moves together. He can accelerate through the hole like very few can. He can break off home runs. Second most explosive plays in the league behind only Jahmyr Gibbs, according to Pro Football Focus. There's just a lot to like with Saquon's game, man. Like he's seeing the field extremely well right now. So, to me, if I was Terrell Austin, and obviously I'm not, I'm just a YouTuber with pneumonia, but I would be personally stacking the heck out of the box, and I'd be forcing Jalen Hurts to beat me. And obviously, you leave yourself susceptible on the perimeter. You're going to have to trust your guys like Joey Porter Jr. You're going to have to trust Dante Jackson to win their one-on-ones on the boundary. But against a great offense, like one of the best offenses in the league, it's kind of like a pick your poison type of thing. Like you're not going to be able to slow down or shut down everything. You just want to try to make them one-dimensional. And to me, just the way that the Eagles are playing, I would be trying to make them more one-dimensional and force them to throw the football. That's just my opinion. Now, it gets a little tricky because if you talk about, you pretty much have to play like 7-8 guys in the box against Philly, against light boxes this season. Saquon's averaging like 6.8 yards per attempt. I mean, it's just not tenable. Like you can't play a light box. Not that the Steelers would do that anyway. What kind of sucks is like in this matchup, even though they like to spread things out, you'd probably see a lot of Deshaun Elliott down, like rolling down as the safety in the box. He's not playing. The guys that are playing in his spot, DeMonte KZ, Cam Sutton, like neither one of those guys are necessarily box guys. So what I would probably do, and I don't know that this is what they'll actually do. I'd be kind of surprised if it would, just because of how they deployed Minkah this season. I'd put Minkah in the box, and then I would probably put KZ at free safety. And again, like there's a chance that this ends up going like it did a couple years ago, and you just get bombs away, and like Hurts hits a couple deep balls, AJ Brown beats you deep a couple times, and it just ends up turning into a blowout. Like I would personally, with how Jalen's played recently and like his lack of confidence in my eyes, I'd be willing to live with that because here's the deal: like Jalen's going to attack outside the numbers. He's going to be able to hold the free safety in the middle of the field anyway on those go balls. Might as well put KZ back there, have Minkah come up and have him make a real impact in the run game. You slow down Saquon. Only one team's really done it this season. It's been Cleveland. They slowed him down to like 2.6, I think, yards per carry that day. They held Philly to 20 points. And I think if you're looking at a way for the Steelers to win this game, it's like probably holding them to like 20 or less, right? Generating a turnover or two. The reason Cleveland didn't win that game is because Deshaun got sacked 5 times, didn't really do anything with the ball for the Browns offense. But I mean, that's kind of the formula I would personally take. And it could blow up. I'm not trying to like say anything like groundbreaking anything here, but like there's a risk involved with however you play it. I know for a fact I would not be allowing Barkley to just go like 5-6 yards and just bludgeon me over the head the entire game. That's just not how I would want to play it. I'd want to put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands because I think as talented as that offense is top to bottom, Jalen's a solid player, but that would be how I would be trying to win. But we'll see. On the other side of the ball, I think it's really unfortunate that Pickens isn't playing in this one just because I feel like this would probably be the best test for the Steelers offense that we've seen like with Russ in terms of like figuring out just how serious should we take this group in the playoffs. Like, is this an offense that's capable of competing and scoring in high leverage moments, high scoring affairs, and once you get into the postseason? But like without Pickens, man, like I'm just not really sure like how to even gauge or like judge this performance, just because I feel like they're just at a really big disadvantage. But just talking about the Eagles specifically, Vic Fangio, their coordinator, Eagles' primary coverages, they're a lot of like weak rotated cover 3. They'll align in the same like 2 safety shell. They'll do some rotations out of that. It's a lot of cover 6 and quarters on about like 15% of their snaps. If they do, they like to cloud like the single receiver side, or like if they feel like there's like a true like ball winner Now that would be Pickens if he was in the game, but that's obviously not the case this week. The thing that I think is so impressive when you watch them is just how sound they are, just in their coverages, man. Like their zone coverages, like everything from the second, third level feels like it's on a string. They pass off routes, distribute routes so cleanly, man. And like Fangio's still playing with a light box, only putting 6 guys in there, quite a bit. So, I mean, you guys don't need me to tell you this, but the Steelers are going to have to run the football extremely well, and not just be okay, but like run it extremely effectively if they're going to pull this off, in my opinion. So, Arthur Smith talked about it this week about trying to find some tweaks, tinker with some things in order like to move the ball without 14 in the game. Is that like my question would be, is that leaning into like a little bit more like 12 or 13 personnel, even more than they already have? I mean, nobody's using 13 personnel more than they are, but could they like lean all the way into it in this matchup just because, the receiver depth is what it is? And maybe you try to big boy him up front. If you go 13 personnel, maybe you can get a guy like Cooper DeJean off the field entirely on those early downs, but they're going to need to find some explosive plays. I think it really relies mostly on the offensive coordinator scheming those guys open more than anything else, because they're not going to have the matchups like one-on-one on the perimeter. It's just not going to happen. This isn't a team that blitzes very much. It's really predicated on like keeping the ball in front, limiting those explosive plays really at all costs. They're going to allow some cheap completions, so perhaps like Russ can kind of just point guard his way through this one, take dink and dunk his way down the field. I think that's asking, quite a bit out of him, but, that's kind of what this defense is like willing to let you do, is throw the ball underneath and they'll rally and tackle. It's a pretty good tackling team too, but this Eagles defense has been fantastic since the first month of the season. You look at some of the numbers since week 5, they're second in EPA per play, third in success rate. 4-3 group. They play a lot of different fronts. They do have some chess pieces. Jalen Carter is an absolute monster. He's going to be up against Mason McCormick this week. I think it's going to be an excellent test for like where McCormick is in his development. You talk about a game which you're going to have to grow up a lot and really quickly. This is one of those games for a rookie. So excited to see how, how Frazier, handled themselves along the interior in this matchup, just because I feel like Philly's really stacked on the defensive line. Milton Williams is a guy that's a free agent. He's going to get crazy money in the offseason. I don't think a lot of people, I think in the mainstream, maybe just like modern fan bases, whatever, like really understand like how good Milton Williams has played this season, especially as a pass rusher. Their edge rushers are solid. Sweat's a really good player. Nolan Smith is a guy that's a little bit of a work in progress. I will say this about Nolan Smith. For his size, I think he plays the run adequately. I thought he was a really impressive run defender on film coming out of Georgia, but teams have ran at him a little bit on the edge this year. He's like a 235-pound edge rusher. So when you talk about getting into some of those multi-tight end sets, can you maybe get to the perimeter on him where you can double him with a guy like Darnell Washington, who's, obviously a guy that's going to be familiar with him from his college days, but, who's 280, 300 pounds. Like, can you get that advantage and really try to wreck shop with maybe some of those like same side tosses out of the gun, things like that are things that I would expect them to maybe try leaning into. What's really been a revelation for them though is like Zach Bond. This dude was like an edge rusher coming into the league, and then he randomly just starts playing off-ball linebacker this season, and turns out he's excellent at it. Like he's good at fitting the run. He's been great in coverage. They do a little bit of everything with him. He's been a chess piece along the front. They got 2 rookies on the back end. Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, both those guys. If you're, longtime subscribers to the channel, or like we're around this channel during the draft season, you guys remember like we talked a lot about both these guys. I think I even did a film room on Quinyon, probably still up on the channel somewhere. But they've been great fits for the system. Like I said, really quarter zone heavy. They've been, just glove-like fits. I think both have looked the part and then some. I'm pretty fascinated by the approach here for the Steelers, just on both sides of the ball. Sorry about that. But, I think if you look at it on paper, you could easily say, oh, this is a game that the Steelers could lose by multiple scores, whatever. But I also think like the Steelers defense is good enough with how Hurts has played recently to make this a dogfight. And I'm excited to see what that looks like on Sunday. So I really appreciate your all's continued support for the channel. I will be back. It's a 4:25 game, so I'm not sure if I'll have the recap up Sunday night or early Monday morning. But as always, I really appreciate you tapping in, and I will talk to you guys soon. Peace and love.